All right, so thanks y'all for joining us today. This is the reports webinar. This is a follow-up to our posting, I believe, last month of a new training video that Llewellyn put together. And so we had put together a questions doc parking lot style for y'all, and I'm just posting that here in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. And you can also type those in the chat if you don't want to use audio. Cardinal team's here to help monitor that chat and answer questions. And we'll have a couple of items in our arsenal to fill up some of the time if need be.
Yeah, if there's no questions, we have a very fun crossword to go through.
I'm gonna put y'all to work.
Yeah. Another thing that we can handle is just how to go over running a report, what kind of reports that we have in our centralized report templates. We were also thinking we could go over how to create some basic templates if y'all just want to like throw out some ideas and we can see what kind of reports we can make based on that, or we can just go through all the data sources and just pick something at random and see what we can come up with.
I have one question, more than one, but here's one. Can you do a template that will give you bib records that don't have a particular field? I'm thinking about, catalog cleanup stuff. And I like to make sure that I have 520s in all my bibs. Is there a way to like find all the bibs that don't have a 520 for my system?
So I think so. There should be an operator that says something like is not null or blank. So I think we might be able to hone in on that particular field and put a filter on there that says is not null or is null, and then it would bring up the ones that are blank or leave them off if you don't want them.
And maybe we can collect a couple of questions and if there's, and then get into that and kind of show you, Llewellyn, that'd be in the flatten mark record source?
There's so many different sources. It's kind of like a case-by-case basis, which one is the best one to pick. I haven't done many reports that are like specific to like one of those mark fields, but I would think it's probably pretty similar to some of the other reports I've done, particularly like with the StatCats or with those flattened mark entries. It's probably pretty similar.
Other questions? We can accumulate a couple questions. Mary, you said you had some others?
I was wondering if there's actually a document out there somewhere that just defines all of the different terms when you're making a template.
Yeah, I think the closest thing to that is that crossword I just mentioned. There's an answer bank that has all of the definitions in there, but maybe it would be a good idea to migrate some of that text into the knowledge book so you can read it decoupled from the puzzle.
Maybe we could go ahead and pull that crossword up, Llewellyn, since that's related to Mary's question.
Sure. I can post a link to it in that document, and then everybody could just open it from there.
Sounds good.
This is a crossword puzzle we put together for one of our recent migrating libraries. When we migrated Sampson County, we put this together for our reports training for them.
So we could also go ahead and start looking at the bib records without a particular value report as well.
Well, and you want me to share my screen and take a swing at that? And maybe you can help me with some of the nullability stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I can walk you through what all we need to get accomplished here.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, I can be. All right. So can you all see my screen where I'm at the splash page?
Yeah, I can see.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we were actually playing around with this question a little bit for someone recently. So we'll go have a look and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with creating a template from scratch, just as if there was nothing I was basing it off of. And then we will play around with what can be in there. So if you're doing something from scratch, then you'll want to add a name and a description and that sort of thing. We'll call this mark records without a subfield value. So let's see here. So for my source, there is a source that's called flattened mark fields. And what that is it takes the mark record, and every time there is a field and a subfield, it has a row in the database for that subfield. And so if you have a 655 subfield A, it will have that. If you have the 655 that has a subfield A and has a subfield H, that H will be on another row in the same table. And so if, for instance, you have a 245 with a lot of title information, each row or each subfield of that title information will get its own row in the database. So if you have a subfield A, it'll have one row. If you have a subfield H, it'll have another row. So for some of you who aren't catalogers, this may not mean quite as much, but for those of you that are catalogers, maybe that's something that's of value for you. So Llewellyn, the nullability, this is where we would at the beginning want to turn on nullability.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, because we're going to say where 65, Mary, which subfield was that you were interested in?
The 520
okay
field, and I guess subfield A.
Okay. So we will say we want to have nullability. And so there's a bunch of core sources here. These are kind of the main things you'll ask questions of. And if you're looking at these templates, you'll see that it relies on a lot of these. Outside of that, there's also the non-core. So there's this is where you really get into the weeds with a bunch of kind of other stuff. In this case, if you're looking at those cataloging values, there is this table called flattened mark records, or sorry, flattened marked fields. And so in this case, we would want parent nullable, because the field that we're using that might be nullable is in this core source. Does that ring true, Llewellyn?
So my thought was that the core source, you might want it to be a bibliographic record, and then do a child nullable join onto that flattened mark fields.
Okay.
Because you've got the potential that we might have we might have like an empty join, like we might not have anything to join on.
Okay. If there is no 655 value in the, good call. Okay, so then in that case, we would choose a more standard core source like, what do we?
Bibliographic record.
All right, there we go. So it's saying, okay, so then in this case, we will say child nullable, because the child record, which is the flattened, would be nullable.
See, I never mess with the core sources nullability. I think in this instance, you'd just want to expand that and then do a child nullable join onto the flattened mark records.
Okay. All right, so flatten mark fields. Okay, so this is where you're saying do a child nullable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So our bibliographic record. So maybe what we would, and Llewellyn, I might be able to use your wisdom here. So how would you, in terms of the bibliographic record, we probably would want to limit by ownership.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me what display fields we might want, which usually for this type of thing, I would say most commonly get like TCN, title, and author, maybe ISBN too. But yeah, limiting that on the owner is a good idea also. I'm trying to think, the owner of a bibliographic record is kind of loosey-goosey for what that might entail. I mean, for a lot of those, Cardinal would be the owner, right?
Yeah.
So we might limit it to call number owner. That might also be a good route to go down.
That's a good call.
So I would say maybe do a none nullable on that one.
On the owning library?
Or on the call numbers.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I just pointed to my screen like you'd be able to see it.
Okay.
So just as a note, I added a link to the knowledge book that has the report appendices for those of you who want to pull that up. And if any of these terms are kind of confusing, you can find references to those there, some descriptions and notes.
Thanks, Anna. So Benjamin, I would say click the call numbers source on that left panel.
All right, the call numbers.
Yep. And
Okay.
then go click owning library.
Okay.
Then raw data, and then add that as a filter.
All right, as a filter. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
And then here we want to do for
Enlist.
the
Yeah.
enlist. Okay. Operator to be. So this enlist, what this does is this is how when so we have either the display fields, which is what will be in the report, the data that you're getting out, and the filters is how you restrict that information to just what you're interested in. So in this case, we're saying that the call number, we're finding a way to associate the information that we're grabbing with a specific library. And so doing this owning library where you have an org unit in list, that means that when we go and actually run the report, you're going to get that screen that says, which org units are you interested in? And then you can select your branches and plop them down into that little field that says only look at stuff that has information relative to these branches. So that lets you either do all 5 of your branches or just the individual branch that you're trying to run this information for. All right. All right, so we get the owning library from the call number record. Then would you suggest going to the flatten mark after that?
Yeah.
Sorry, the trash truck is going by right now. Okay, so the information that we have in this table, here we have like the subfield, which would be the number value. We have the tag, which would be subfield A sort of thing. We have a normalized value, which is going to be, in this case, we would presumably look for the filter that we add would be for the subfield. We put in the subfield, we could put in the subfield and the tag, and then we would say where the normalized value is null. Is that what you would suggest, Llewellyn?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and put this in. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and display all this information. What that's going to mean is that we'll end up with a TCN and then several fields that are empty. They don't have anything actually to display because presumably there's nothing there. But we'll add that just so that when you're looking at the information, you can see that, yep, there's nothing there. All right, so now we have a report that will display a TCN, a subfield, a tag, and the value of the field. So let's go over to the filters.
Benjamin,
Yes.
I was just thinking, in the case that there are multiple of these fields, you're going to have multiple rows with like duplicate data. So we might want to use an aggregator on that one.
Okay.
So we've got a transform of either first or last value.
Should we do that on the TCN or on the
Just on the flattened mark fields.
okay. So the same for all three of them?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Otherwise, it might be confused about how it's trying to group the data.
Gotcha. All right, so we got normalized value, and then
You can choose first or last.
okay, gotcha.
It's just more than likely just going to be one, but
Okay. All right, so then for the filters, here's where we would do change filter value. In this case, we're looking for a 520. And then this case subfield A. Other suggestions?
so what do your filters look like right now?
Filters are, we have owning library, maybe an is deleted on the bib record, or
That might be a good thing to display.
okay.
I don't know if we should filter on it.
Okay.
It might be useful to order the data by that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking with this report, we'll be able to see all of those mark values, and we can see whether it's null or has a value in there. And then if it's null, you know which ones you want to get rid of or fix up.
All right. Other things to add to this?
Maybe a title and author. Those are some typical things I put in. I think that's simple record extracts or wide. Yeah.
Author and title. All right.
Always got to have a good description.
Yes.
You can also edit the column labels on the display fields if you want to change those
Oh, yeah.
to make it a little more readable. Those look pretty good. I was just mentioning that as a
Yeah.
FYI.
I always find the normalized kind of confusing.
Let's change that label just to show how it's done.
Yeah.
All right, and change column label.
There, Benjamin is just right clicking to get to that.
Yep.
To edit it.
Should we give this a swing? Is this any? So those are our display fields. What's up?
Just giving it one last look over.
Sure. So our filter is by owning library. We're looking for any. So we're filtering by 520A. Is that going to find instances where it's empty though?
It's hard to say without running it.
Okay. So that's why I always start off with an 01 when I make a template for the first time, because chances are it's going to take an 02 and sometimes an 07. So, okay, so we've gone through this and put kind of together some basic information. We put the fields, we sort of pick through here and we find the fields that we want. We try to be as efficient as we can be in terms of going from the basic information that we're looking for and to the next table or two. The deeper you go, if you go, these little arrows on the side, you can go to another record, and then you can go to another record, and then you can go to another record, then go to another record. And the deeper you get in there, the more likely it is to just and not be able to make sense of the links that you're creating. So in this case, we're pretty much going from bibliographic record and then jumping over to flatten mark fields or bibliographic record and simple record extracts to grab the author and title. So we've got our display fields. We've got a couple of things we're filtering by, got a description, got a title. So let's go ahead and save it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what this is going to output.
All right, so now I put that in my my own folder here. So yeah, here we go. So this is the one that we just created, and you can see over here the creation time. If that's helpful, you can see whether it was one of the old style reports or whether it was created with a web client. So we've got our templates folder, we've got our reports folder, and we've got our output folder. So I'm going to take this template that is sort of a generic question, and I'm going to create a report. And so when I create the report, that's what I'm going to say. I'm interested in Carteret County, specifically this branch, and this branch. And then I'll have that will show up in my reports, and then the data that it generates will show up in output. And while we're doing this, this is a great opportunity, if anyone else has any other questions, to let us know. So I'm gonna go ahead, create a new report from the selected template. And I'm gonna name the report the same thing as my template because I only am. Then I'm gonna choose where do I put this. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in my B. Murphy folder. Let's go look for our friends in Carteret County. Okay, so I have chosen those. You can choose multiple by clicking on the control. If I use the control and click, it will let me choose different ones, and then I just hit this add button. So now it's saying show me subfield equals 520, mark tags equals A. I'm going to run it right away. I'm going to put it in my folder. And now I'm going to save this report because I've told it to run as soon as possible. Then it's going to go and try to grab this information straight away. So it says action succeeded. Now I can go to my reports, and if I go to my folder, I can see, yep, right here it is. And I told it at 2:30 to run. Now I'll go down to my output folder and look for, and so what I see right here is it has not yet run, so it's queued up to run, or it is in the midst of running. And so we'll see what happens. Other questions, other things we can look at while this is churning away.
Yeah, so my prediction with this is it's going to filter so it's bib records that have a value in the 520, since we put that filter on there.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the ways to get it to refresh is to change this output limit. And you'll see now that we have some stuff down here in the completed items. So let's click on the one that we just did. Go up here, view report output, hit submit. All right, so we get this pop up. If you ever need to send us information about what in the heck went wrong, that debug right there will get you the what we will find useful. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Excel output and drum roll. Let's see what we get here. Nada.
Oh no.
This is the process.
That's no fun. Let's look at the debug and see what that looks like.
Okay. So this is,
If only that meant it were perfect.
yeah, Mary, your records are immaculate. There's no problem with any of your records. So
Yay,
that's
good to
what's going
know.
on. Let me clean this up a little bit here. So this is what we do behind the scenes when we need to make sense of what is going on. All right, so we have an inner join on asset call number, which makes sense because we are wanting to ensure that it is a value that has that library system associated with it. There are the branches. Subfield is null or anything jump out at you about this, Llewellyn?
The only thing that kind of jumped out to me is all the numbers having the single quotations around them. It's kind of strange.
Oh, yeah. Is it a good use of our time to continue chasing this down, or do we have other things? I'm happy to divert into something else, or if we should just keep playing with this, we can do that. Thoughts from the attendees?
Well, I hate to keep dominating this, but I do have another question.
Okay.
Hopefully it's simple, but I've been sort of ignoring the reports folder. I'm not sure why, because I didn't think I had to do anything in there. Is there anything I should be doing other than what you mentioned on the video, which is editing recurring reports? But otherwise, can I kind of ignore it?
I would say so. I mean, I typically ignore it as well. The only other time that I find use of it is if I'm trying to delete a report. I think you can do it from that area. And what that does is if we have a template that has been run before, you need to delete all the reports that have been run off of it before you can actually delete it. But Benjamin, is there anything else you can think of in that folder?
I really ignore that folder for the most part too. I mean, really, to me, the place where the action is the templates folder, because that's where you're setting everything up. And in my mind, the reports is kind of a midway between, you know, how you set things up and what you end up getting in your output folders. So yeah, I rarely go into my reports folder. I usually just go in my output and in my templates.
So I was thinking, yeah, it might be useful to bring that into PG admin and maybe show people how the template lines up with what you get out of the database. And
Sure.
when I'm debugging stuff, I'll typically remove the filters one by one and see what changes.
Okay. So this is what we can look at here behind the scenes. This, just a minute.
I have a possible idea looking at
Yeah.
it, but I'm not 100% certain. Isn't the 520 the tag and the A the subfield?
Oh.
I think you got them reversed.
Ha. That sounds plausible. Good call, Will.
Thanks. Hopefully that'll fix it.
Yeah, let's try that. So let's see here. So we're saying if the owning library is this, and then see the weird thing, yeah, so I think that's right. The weird thing is the way that this is structured, it's not saying 520 is null. It's saying the subfield is A or the tag is 520, but it's looking for something that doesn't exist.
Let's see what comes out of it.
Okay. Other questions, other things that you were interested in knowing about? Thinking about this, the way that I, in a database, the way that I would structure this is show me records that are for a library system that have a 520A, and then show me everything for that system that's not one of those records. That's, I think, how I would structure that question, because it's a way to say, it's a way to kind of ask the existence of nothing, by saying, show me the ones that have it, and then show me everything else that matches that system that isn't in that list. Which I don't know how to do in a reporter.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's pretty trivial in a database query, but not so easy in a report.
So this is churning away, and this might take a minute. Maybe we can switch topics a little bit and go to looking at some of those centralized reports. Llewellyn, do you want to kind of do a walkthrough of kind of the, sort of approaching that stuff, and kind of how to think about that and what to do if you find things that you want to use?
Sure, yeah.
All right,
Share my screen.
Stop sharing and I'll circle back. I'm going to chew on this a little bit and see what I come up with.
All right, can everybody see my reporter?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yes.
So before, if you have a data request, you can look into the centralized report templates to see whether we have already created a template for what you're looking for. So we've got a whole bunch of different categories of reports and report templates that you can look through. So those all live here in this kind of shared area. This in parentheses at the end is telling you that this is shared with the consortium. That's why it says Cardinal, but there are also shared directories that are kind of limited in scope to a particular system. I think you could even do it to a branch. But basically, we've got these categorized by the type of data, the kind of core source that we're looking into. So, if you are looking for something about like patron barcodes or something like that, you could go to the patron templates and search through the list here. So one thing to keep in mind when you're looking through this is on the almost at the far right here, we've got the create time. Some of the really old reports, like from around before 2018, can sometimes give you mixed results. They might be too old to function as expected. So it's something to keep in mind. Always, I would say always pick the newer template that you see here if you're kind of between two. So all these are from 2021, so that's good. So you might also see that some of these are created in Zool. I don't see any Zool ones here, but those Zool ones are typically very old as well. So those are things to, I don't know if I would say avoid, but like just take caution if that's the template that you choose to use. So you don't have to search through every one of these folders to find what you're looking for. You can actually do a template query up here and you can find what you're looking for just by typing it in. By default, that's going to be searching every field in every folder, and that's likely not what you're looking to do. So you can actually scope that down to a particular folder for your search. So I've limited it down to centralized report templates. So we're only searching those that we have created and not anybody else's shared folders. I'll just search for Mark and see what comes up. Yeah, so we've got some that match. These are some Zool ones. These are pretty old. Got 2016, 2012, 2014. This is interesting. Mark 650 tag with an empty form. So that's kind of like what we're doing right now. That's interesting. So I'm kind of curious what happens if we try to run this one. Since it is an older one, I can show you maybe what it looks like if we do hit an error. I'm also curious to see what the output of this is going to look like. So I'll just go ahead and I'll set it up to output into my L Marshall folders. Let's see what we have for setting this up. Looks like we only have the option of putting in the org unit, debunk them. Yeah, I always select the system org unit when I'm doing the end list. I don't know if you have to. It's just kind of a precaution I take just in case the owning library or something is set to the system instead of to a particular branch. It's just kind of like just in case scenario. I think, yeah, I filled out everything. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Let's go over my output. Let's see what we have. All right, still working through that one. With some of these, if they're going to hit an error, they'll hit it right away unless it's a timeout error. And what a timeout error means is that it's been processing for so long that the system has given up on it. I'm not sure what the time limit there is. I think it's somewhere probably between 1 or 2 hours. And if your report is running for that long, I would say typically that means there's something wrong with it. Maybe the scope of what you're looking for is too broad, or maybe there's some kind of like infinite loop in what it's looking for, like you join onto the same table over and over again type of deal. So let's see what we have, see if it's finished up. Still going through that one. So I guess while we're waiting on these things, are there any questions about what I've shown so far? I'm really curious to see what the debug output of this one looks like based on the report Benjamin was working on.
Mary, I think I got an answer for you. It's only 27,000 rows.
Oh, is that all? Okay. Oh no.
But I'm trying to see if it actually is correctly looking for your things.
Right.
So Benjamin, is the output of that, is it showing ones with a null mark record field as well?
The way that I did it was show me everything that has a 520A, and then select everything that isn't in that list of things that has a 520A. So it doesn't, it's the output as I have it right now is just the TCN, the author, and the title. But right now I'm trying to run that against looking up some example ones to make sure that there's actually Carteret items on there. Let's see here. And I don't think it is restricted to Carteret items. So I think that 27,000 is a whole lot more than it actually. I think that's probably everything that Carteret has a copy on, but so it's not quite the right question yet. This is the fun of figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah, that question in general sounds like something that's better served by a database query than a report.
Yeah. Although we always welcome the challenge.
Yeah. It's always, I would say, more sustainable to find a way to do it in a report, because there's a lot of things where I'm just like kind of running a database query every few weeks and sending people the output because it's something that can't be done in the reporter. Yeah, it's still chewing through that. I bet this is one of those ones that might time out after a while. Kind of curious to see, actually. Yeah, we can
That
see.
one was from 2016, right?
Yeah,
that you were
that
testing out?
was a 2016 Zool one. Oh no, it just finished. Might need to change my screen sharing settings so you can actually see that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we've got the output from that one that's just been running. So I think this is one I was looking for. Actually, I can just see the debug info, but it's looking for a particular value in a particular mark record field. Yeah, it was looking for a value large in tag 650. So that's cool. It's always a good sign when one of those older Zool reports functions as you expect.
Oops.
But that's kind of the same process as what we could use to identify some bib records that have a value in the 520A field. But it would be a bit harder to find the ones that don't have it, because then that row wouldn't exist at all. I think that's the problem that Benjamin is working through right now.
So other questions that we can, other things that might be helpful? I think in general, our kind of thought here was, trying to find ways to, we know that this is kind of challenging content. We know that it's not very intuitive. And, really kind of thinking about ways to kind of have like office hours kind of things where we're sort of brainstorming things, troubleshooting things, figuring out how to, meet you all at your point of need, answer simple questions, answer complex questions, that sort of thing. That's really how we wanted to approach this. And, is this something that, oh, here we go. Maybe I'll share yours. Yours is churning, or yours is done, Llewellyn.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right, let me share my screen and I will show you what I found, Mary. And then we will see if this is, all right. So according to this copy from Beaufort, Maine, with this author and title, does not have a 520. So let's go see if that is true. You all can see the my evergreen screen and my search query screen.
Okay.
All right, let's look this up by TCN. Okay, all right, maybe we're hitting something here. Okay, so this is a Beaufort, Maine copy. If we go to Mark View, let's see if we have a 520. No 520. All right, so now we may be hitting something.
Looking good.
So
Yeah.
let's see. All right, 33,000 rows. So, but according to this would be more like the list of things. But if this is helpful, this is something that we could get into a little bit more of a targeted list, like things that only have certain circ mods, or something like that. Yeah, this is something that we can send to you. We can continue trying to do something in terms of a report that you can run yourself, but we'll see if we can figure out how to make that work.
Sounds good. It would be good to be able to narrow it down some more.
What would be valuable ways to narrow it down, like the circ modifier of the items that are attached to that are on the record, or what kind of things might be useful?
I feel like it would be more important to fix the more recent titles. So a pub year would probably be like a pub year range or something like that would be useful. Sure. Or some kind of date.
Okay. All right, well, I will save this so that we can run that at will, and then we can see if what we can do in the actual reporter in terms of getting this kind of data for you so that you can run it yourself. Because this is the kind of stuff, things that don't have O2O records, those or things that are a book circ mod that don't have an O2O, that would be a really kind of useful query to have.
Benjamin, I was just thinking about a write joins. So if you remember from the actual reporter training video, I had those Venn diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking that might be something we could use for this scenario. Because if we had a write join and we have all of the mark record 520 fields, then we do a write join and we say we want all the records that are not a part of this. Maybe that would be something.
There you go. Yeah,
That'd be
that
worth
would
a
give
try.
us a positive set to run our negative set against, or would it be, if that makes sense.
It's worth a try.
Well, it's 3:00. What other things that are of curiosity or interest? You all find this helpful? I know we're kind of, going down some rabbit holes and that kind of stuff. How can we make these kind of sessions useful for you? And you're welcome to chime in now, or put something in the chat, or in the Basecamp group if you think about this later. We're interested in finding ways to help you at your point of need, and how we can get you the information and the training and stuff that you need.
Maybe it would be good to do these more focused. So like one that's for reports related to circulation, one for reports related to cataloging. Maybe that would help people narrow down their questions.
Financial reports one would probably be pretty popular. Yeah, a lot of tickets about those.
So a suggestion for sending reports for us to take a look at ahead of time, requesting that those be brought to our attention. I think we only allotted an hour for the session today. Of course, we're happy to chat with you all a little bit longer. One thing I'll say as a reminder before we sign off for today, to just make sure that when you are cloning a template from a shared folder, go ahead and do that, and don't run your report from that shared folder, as it causes interference with like deletion of those templates and any like cleanup processes. All right, well, thanks everyone for coming and being part of this. And as Benjamin mentioned, welcome any sort of feedback, whichever way you want to send it to us before the survey that we send out annually. So yeah, have a great day. Let us know whenever you have any questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care, y'all.